everyone, welcome to the Immortality Podcast. Once again, I'm your host Jake here with Josh.
Hello.
How's it going, Josh?
It's going pretty good.
So first up today, we have a new puer pressing. So this is pretty exciting. So as always, what I'm going to do is preheat the tea vessels. This is obviously Kung Fu style brewing. You want to preheat everything, both to preserve the temperature of the tea and to wash out any dust or remnants out of the teacups. So this one we're calling Slumbering Grove. It was pressed just last year, but it's 2017 spring harvest. For about 4 years, it was maocha, unpressed tea. Maocha means raw tea. That's what puer is called before it's pressed into shapes, like a brick or a cake. The distinguishing thing about tea like this, tea that was stored as maocha for a longer than usual time, is that in my experience, I've noticed it tends to develop a little faster. It tends to develop a little differently too. But as far as the fermentation process goes, if it's in a humid environment, it's going to be a little easier. It's going to have a little easier time fermenting the leaves, creating earthier flavors. Let's like smell the leaves.
So when they're leaving this raw, loose tea known as maocha to ferment, what do they do to prepare it? They just get it to a certain place and then
pretty much. It's just everything in puer processing. Drying, rolling, frying. They're just leaving out the last step, which is pressing the tea into shapes.
How do they keep it from drying out fully over those 4 years? That they just constantly have moisture on it?
So this doesn't need it because it was being stored in Guanzhou for those 4 years. Guangzhou, very large Chinese city on the Pearl River Delta, southern China. So very, very humid conditions, hot, humid, nearly tropical.
That's pretty cool then. Just the fact that they kind of stored it in its natural environment, which was humid, so they could preserve it and ferment it. And then after that, then they pressed it and did further kind of aging.
This is obviously going to age more. I think we've talked about before. We've touched on puer aging a little bit. It's a bit of a struggle in most North American environments because you can't really leave the puer out to age because most areas in North America are going to be too dry and cold to really encourage proper fermentation. What we do at Trident is have our puer in what the online community dubbed pumidors instead of a humidor. Basically, it's a sealed environment with humidity being artificially introduced, similar to what you do for cigars.
That makes sense. Just trying to recreate that natural environment of Guanzhou.
Yeah, or anywhere. There's various kinds of like storage characters. What do you think in there? Your smell?
It smells amazing.
Yeah, it smells pretty fruity, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's a really nice top note that just pops right into the nose.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah, so let's get brewing here. Again, I'm just gonna do like 5 to 10 second steeps to start with.
So then with this, they aged it in its kind of natural process. Then they pressed it, and then how long did they age it in the pressed cake format?
Oh, this was only pressed last year. So
okay.
Yeah, it's just 2021. Sorry, it was pressed it was picked in 2017 and pressed in 2021. And the material, I guess I should say, is Yiwu.
Nice.
It's a blend of old trees from the Yiwu area, and we can talk a little about Yiwu, but let's
I think I love the name, Jake. Slumbering Grove.
Yeah.
Well, and it really talks about the process a little bit. You're letting the tea sleep for 4 years, and then putting it into its grove, putting it back together with everything else.
Yeah, I hadn't even thought about that. That is a little poetic.
Dang.
So compared to like a very young tea, I think there's a little more like oak and mushroom on this.
Yeah. Very oaky.
And definitely like the fruit has gone more towards the dry fruit end. Like more like dried apricots maybe. There's like kind of like a little bit of a, I don't know, like a bit of a boozy note to that. What do you think?
Yeah, it's got this. I know that normally when I'm drinking puers, I'm looking for the astringency, but then also this one has a sweetness where I would look or just expect there to be kind of this astringent kind of cleaning quality. But this one it's more like
Yeah, so it's a lot more developed, right?
Yeah, like a smooth whiskey almost.
Sure.
I don't know if that makes sense or if that's a metaphor that works here.
Yeah, no, it makes total sense. I think puer and whiskey are fairly comparable in a lot of ways in terms of flavor and character.
Well, and like now that I say whiskey, I can taste the oak barrel, even
Yeah.
though it wasn't in an oak barrel. I can taste an oak barrel.
Oh God, I have had to try bourbon aged puers before. People are doing everything right now.
Whoa!
I know. I'm not. No, I was not impressed, but but I appreciate the innovation, right? That's how you make things.
So they would just take it and they would put it in like a bourbon.
Yeah, store it in the bourbon, like aged in a bourbon barrel instead of like anywhere else, right? Like just like you would bourbon or wine or whatever. Yeah, but this kind of has a little bit, of that character naturally. There's like an earthy, sour quality. There's a lot of sweetness. There is of course some astringency still, which is to be expected in a puer that is only about 5 years old now.
Still though, it's really smooth.
Yeah, and it's only gonna get better from here. Like it's the pressing is still fresh. Once it like dries a little and calms and like gets some like natural oxidation and somewhat like a little bit of further fermentation, it's just gonna like be even more mellow than this. Oh, quite good.
Have you drunk this one a lot?
Yeah, a few times, definitely.
Whoa, there's an unfolding sweet note. Mm-hmm. Like in that second one. I don't know what it is, but it was different than the first two.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, what do you want to say? Like bordering on like strawberries or lychee or something like that? Like,
It's a dried fruit. I know that.
Yeah.
I know that. It was kind of I almost thought it was, like a dried raisin, dried currant.
Yeah, it's not quite like a date or something. It's not that dark. Yeah, currant I think is pretty close. So this is from Yiwu. It's old tree material. Not like the very oldest. Pretty old. This one we did press to be a bit of a budget option. It's only $50 for a 200-gram cake, which for semi-aged Yiwu, if you're in the know, is quite a good deal.
Yeah, like most stuff from Yiwu, whether it's a single blend or just a blend of Yiwu, I mean that's easily $90 a cake.
Yeah, and this is a good segue right here because I wanted to talk about Yiwu itself. Is one of the more expensive puer origins, and this is another way in which puer has overlaps with the worlds of Scotch, whiskey, and wine. In that origin is very important. Pu'er always comes from Yunnan, so the southern China, and usually the very south tip of Yunnan too. It has to be like it basically grows in the jungles along the borders with Myanmar and Burma. But Yiwu was historically the distribution point for tea in the pre-modern period. It was an important tea route destination. It was a distribution point for tribute teas going to other parts of China, very high quality teas. So it historically has a bit of a reputation as a higher end tea area in like the Chinese consciousness anyway. It's I guess you could maybe equate it to like Bordeaux or something. It's just a famous origin, or like Bordeaux or Islay for Scotch. It's that the tea automatically has a bit of a pedigree coming from that region.
And within those regions too, it's the tea's growing out of rocky places. It's growing out of jungly places, much like the whiskey. That's you're fermenting all these things that came from a certain landscape, a certain biological diversity. And is Yiwu on the Silk Road? I mean, I would imagine with all of the ancient history, it would have to be somewhat like a stopover on the Silk Road, right?
If it was, it would be more in the origin point, or like towards one end. Certainly a point on the tea road where they were shipping brick tea from southern China to places like Mongolia and Tibet.
And just to think that the plant was grown in such a humid, jungly, almost like nature-rich region that it's almost bringing that life into it.
Yeah.
With its provenance, versus being from like the Himalayas or India, Japan, Taiwan.
Sure. Yeah, I mean every origin has its own character. Yeah, and Yiwu, we speak about terroir, right, in wine, and like I talk about that in tea a lot too. What is it, Josh?
I just got this wonderful tobacco note. It just like
Yeah.
increased the oakiness.
Yeah.
Oak times 3, but it was like this tobacco, smoky
Yeah.
flavor.
Yeah, the tea's definitely developing. I think this is about steep 4 we're doing right now. This is one that will steep for a little while, like maybe 8 to a dozen good steeps, I would guess.
What do you think your ideal steeping time is for this?
In a small guy one like we're doing now, we're just using about 100 milliliter guy one, and I put I believe 8 grams of tea in it, so it's pretty heavily loaded. I'm just doing 5 to 10 second steeps right now because there is some astringency still. I don't want to overdo it on that and push that out too hard. You want to try to do a slow release, and then when you start noticing the tea to weaken a little, then you can start increasing the brew time.
Yeah, no, I can taste it. Even with those 5 to 10 second steeps, I can taste when we're getting like the 9 to 10 second steeps are literally pretty intense.
Yeah.
And then some of the earlier cups we had some like 5 to 7 second steeps.
Yeah.
But like you're right on, I think.
Well, this is a wild tea, right? It's not cultivated, so it has wild tea character. It's definitely strong. Pu'ers are famous for being bitter. Yiwu's tea is somewhat less so than other origins. Hmong Hai teas like Lao Banjiang, especially Xinbanjiang, Lao Manor most of all, are famous for being very, very bitter, at least as young teas. And then Linsong teas which are a little farther north of the Sichuanbana area, which includes Hmong Hai and Yiwu. Those also have a reputation for being a little more bitter, but Yiwu teas have a reputation for being a little more floral and smooth.
If any tea is coming from a wild tea bush source, that it's safer, it's cleaner, there's no pesticides in the wild kind of thing.
Well, I mean, it would be literally impossible to do a certification on forest teas. Nowhere is totally pure of pesticides like on the earth, right? But I mean, certainly like there's no one spraying these teas, like going out into the forest and spraying them with chemicals. Coming from a biodiverse environment, there are going to be pests and stuff, but that's sort of just part of the thing. The farmer we got this one from really emphasizes handcrafting and pure origins. So because Yiwu is such a famous origin these days, there's a bit of an issue with fake teas, right? People bringing in a tea from other regions, bringing it into Yiwu and then selling it as Yiwu tea, or blending real Yiwu tea with like lesser quality tea, or blending farmed tea with wild tea and just selling it as wild tea. So there's a lot of issues with fake tea that doesn't represent itself properly. It doesn't mean it's all bad. I've certainly had a few good teas that were clearly counterfeits, but nevertheless were good, just using a brand name. But the farmer we get this from really does emphasize traditional processing methods and using pure sources.
The leaves look beautiful.
Yeah.
And you can just tell. What kind of energy do you think this tea has?
Young puers are always very energizing, very uplifting for me.
Yeah, I feel like I could feel it in my head first, and then it was almost
Yeah.
like kind of an arrow or like a spear.
Yeah.
It was very forward with the energy, not complex at all, but just very like, I'm here, get some energy.
It's a little like To the Dome, It's a bit spacey. It also feels pretty abdomen warming to me though too. Yeah. How are those smelling?
Well, even with your abdomen warming comment, it makes sense that it's increasing the stomach chi.
Yeah.
Increasing the metabolism, increasing digestion.
Yeah, this is still not one you want to have on an empty stomach.
Oh, no. We ate a lot of tacos before, so
yeah, it's
we
a bit of a tradition here at the Immortality Podcast. The leaf color for anyone just listening to audio, it's still a little green, but it's bordering on brown. It's a very faded green right now. A less fermented tea would be a little brighter than this, but you can tell that there's been fermentation happening though, just based on the color of the leaves.
So how would you suggest this tea to someone?
So like I said, this is something it's not like the very highest end Yiwu material, but it is real Yiwu material, and it does have an aged character, even if it's not the farthest along. We tried to release it as cheap as possible, $50 for a 200 gram keg.
That is really cheap. I just want everyone to know that for this stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost insane. It's tea insanity. here on the Immortality
So
podcast.
I think what this one's aimed at is someone who might not want to drop all the money in the world on tea, but is looking for an example of authentic tea with some age character.
And like, even for me, as I was trying to figure out which pu'ers to get into, it was trying to figure out the regions, where it comes from, and then the farming style, then, you know, the quality of the material. Is it ancient bush? Is it, you know, wild? Is it farm raised? And what's interesting is, I think this tea, because of its price point, is good for anybody who's really been wanting to try more high-end pu'ers, but maybe hasn't wanted to like drop the money, because this is a high-end pu'er.
This would be a good bridge.
And then that way you can gently play with it and then learn your steeping techniques.
Well, we have a couple more in the store that are one that's a Yiwu that's a true Gushu Yiwu. It's a blend of two different origins. We've had it on the podcast before. And that it's not as aged, but you'll be able to tell like how much smoother it is than this. And then we have another one, very high end one, which I've also featured on the podcast before, is a single origin with some age that's true Gushu. That would be the Guanzhou, and that we sell for I think we sell that for $200 a cake.
It's beautiful.
I
bought a whole cake, and I'm probably going to buy a second.
Yeah, but this would be a good bridge point if maybe you think you want to start getting into like higher end pu'er but aren't sure yet, or if you want more of a daily drinker. I think it would be good. Yeah,
I think if you are a regular pu'er drinker and then you know your quality of pu'ers, this is a great daily drinker. The cup quality for each steeping is really nice, and then if you go through a lot because you're just a pu'er fanatic, then
also I think there's something to be said for this one as like an investment tea. If you're into aging your own tea, you know, it's a bit of a process, you know, especially for someone living in drier places. But if you do have a setup and are interested in investing in a tea that's good now but will be better in a few years, and you're willing to put in the time to take care of it and like take it to that point, then I think this is also a good option.
Because there are so many types of tea, what do you think this specific pu'er and even the idea of aged teas are good for seasonally? Like, do you feel like you would drink a pu'er in the summer, or like would you drink a pu'er for seasonal shifts, or just you need energetic bursts, so try to get that in there?
Yeah, that's actually a great question. So I think as young teas, they tend to be more cooling, right? So I like young pu'er more in the summer, like when it's hot outside. That really like helps cut heat. And then the opposite is true for an aged pu'er. The more it ferments, the more it changes over time. It's going to have a more warming character, and therefore it'll be better in colder times of the year. This one's pretty good. It's pretty in between right now. So I think as a fall tea, this would be great, or like, you know, if it's like a cold day in spring or something.
I definitely have Tai Chi class early on Saturday, and I drank a whole bunch on Friday night.
Sure.
And so I was like ready on Saturday. I woke up just like ready to do Tai Chi for 3 hours at 6 a.m.
Yeah, for sure. No, I I absolutely use tea to bridge the seasonal differences for my body.
And again, like you said, tea started off as a medicine in the Yellow Emperor's canon of medicine.
It's the earliest written recording. It's the earliest written mention we have of tea is in a Chinese medicine text from, I want to say, about 1000 BC.
It's, you know, it's just become a little more mainstream, and like we drink it, but we forget that there's a lot of beneficial aspects to drinking tea daily, weekly, and monthly.
Yeah. So now that we're on the 7th or 8th steep, we can steep it for a little longer, I think. It still has a lot of character, but we need to like push it a little harder to get that to come out, which, you know, again is like the beautiful thing about Gongfu Cha, just having that kind of control and being able to evaluate where the tea is and get the most out of it with every steeping.
When I'm steeping tea on my own, if I steep it for too long, which sometimes
you just space,
you just fail, and it's okay just to pour it out, pour it out for all those who couldn't be here to witness your tea glory, and then just steep it again. But
I would usually just drink the fuck up steep.
I've definitely done that, and I hurt my stomach.
Philosophical difference.
Well, it was definitely a bad fuck up steep. It was like 3 minutes later.
Okay.
Like it was not.
You like walked away. Like started cooking.
Oh, it was bad.
Okay.
Like
That's
it
fair.
wasn't even like a gentle
That's fair.
5 seconds over. It was
That's
like,
fair.
It was like, dang, Josh, you must be extremely ADD right now.
Like you get to the laundromat, you're like, oh shit, I left the tea steeping. I gotta go back.
Well, and then of course, before I pour out the oversteep, I definitely try it. Because it's part of the experiment.
For sure.
It's like,
sure.
what does this taste like?
So yeah, I think we're around steep 8 here, which is what I said would be kind of the ceiling. But it's still very nice. Still has astringency, bitterness, some like kind of subtle floral character, dry fruit, some earthiness in the vein of like wild mushrooms.
Good call on the wild mushrooms.
Mm-hmm. I think like or shiitake mushrooms. I think that was. You think
Maybe some oysters in there?
Oyster. Yeah, I don't know. Well, shiitake has that kind of like bitter edge.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah, so a lot of complexity here.
The oak is still there.
Yeah, for sure. So once again, you can find this tea and others like it, the other puers I mentioned as well, on tridentcafe.com/teas or in the shop on Pearl Street in downtown Boulder.
So it's a new year, and I'm just curious, is there anything new going on with the expansion and the evolution of Trident Teas?
Yeah, so I mean, in the last few years, we've like really pushed the website and the online presence, and like obviously these podcasts are part of that. We've noticed a lot of the very higher end teas selling out quickly online, never really making it into the store. So this year we have ordered a few even more high end ones than we usually get, just to see if they'll sell. So keep your eye on those. We're going to be kind of pushing into an even more upper echelon of tea quality.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
Because I didn't even know I thought we were at the top. You mean we can go better?
We can go. There's still more to go. Still more to go. Yeah.
We're going to the tea mountaintop.
Yeah. I think at about steep 10, there's still a lot more life to give, but we're going to sign off for right now. Thank you once again for joining us. Enjoy drinking.